A private army landed on American soil by river in the dead of night. And it wasn't the government that sent it. It was a company. 300 armed men, hired through a detective agency, floated up the Monongahela River on barges toward a single steel town. Within 24 hours, that town would become a battlefield. And the man who financed the whole operation was sipping tea in a Scottish castle 3,000 miles away, reading about it in a telegram. This is the story of how one of the most celebrated names in American history built his fortune during one of the bloodiest labor conflicts in American history, one he refused to watch. Homestead, Pennsylvania. A few thousand people, wedged along a bend in the river outside Pittsburgh, built entirely around one thing: steel. Specifically, Andrew Carnegie Steel, the largest, most efficient mill in the world, churning out the rails and beams that were building an empire. Carnegie sold himself to the public as different. A poor Scottish immigrant who made it big and gave it back libraries, concert halls, universities, his name stamped on generosity itself. That was the myth. The mill told a different story. By 1892, Homestead's workers were represented by one of the strongest unions in America, the Amalgamated Association of Iron and Steel Workers. Skilled men had fought for decades to win decent wages and a say in how the mill ran. Carnegie didn't like that. Carnegie didn't like that at all. The libraries came later. First came the plan to break the men who built them. Here's the twist almost nobody remembers. Carnegie wasn't even there. He'd sailed to Scotland for the summer, settling into his castle at Skibo, leaving the dirty work to his second-in-command, a man named Henry Clay Frick. Frick wasn't interested in negotiation. Frick was interested in ending the Union permanently. He proposed a new wage scale designed to be rejected. When the Union balked, exactly as expected, Frick locked the entire workforce out of the plant, Chantichoir in Sinsanch. Then he built a fence around it topped with barbed wire, fitted with searchlights and rifle slots. Workers started calling it Fort Frick, and while the fence was going up, Frick was already on the phone with the Pinkerton National Detective Agency, arranging for 300 armed men to retake the mill by force. Evidence suggests Carnegie supported Frick's hardline approach, even while remaining in Scotland. He'd simply arranged to be far away when it happened. He didn't pull the trigger. He just made sure his name wasn't on the gun when it fired. July 6, 1892. Before dawn, 2 barges loaded with Pinkerton agents were towed up the Monongahela, trying to slip into the plant unseen. They failed. Workers spotted the barges and sounded the alarm across town. By the time the Pinkertons tried to land, thousands of Homestead residents, steel workers, wives, neighbors, had gathered on the riverbank, armed with whatever they had: rifles, pistols, a small cannon, dragged out for the occasion. What followed was a full gun battle, fought in the open, in broad daylight, on American soil, between a private corporate army and an American town. It lasted most of the day. By nightfall, several men on both sides were dead. Most accounts put the toll at 7 workers and 3 Pinkertons killed, with dozens more wounded on the riverbank. The Pinkertons, trapped on their own barges under fire, eventually surrendered and were marched through town under guard. For one day, the town had won. The workers beat back a private army with rifles and a cannon, and it still wasn't enough to save them. Victory lasted less than a week. The governor deployed the Pennsylvania National Guard, restoring control of the mill over 8,000 troops, occupying the town and reopening it under armed protection. The workers who'd driven off a private army couldn't hold against the state itself. Then came the twist nobody scripted. Days after the battle, an anarchist named Alexander Berkman, with no direct link to the Union, acting entirely on his own, walked into Frick's office and shot him, then stabbed him in an assassination attempt. Frick survived. He reportedly finished the workday before going to a doctor, and the attack, meant to avenge the strikers, instead let Carnegie's side paint the entire Union as violent extremists, a gift Frick could not have scripted better himself. By November, the strike was broken. The Union was crushed, its treasury drained, its leaders blacklisted across the industry. It would take steelworkers decades, not years, decades, to organize again anywhere near this scale. One bullet, fired by a man the strikers never asked for, did more damage to their cause than every Pinkerton on that river. Here's the part that should make your skin crawl. Carnegie came home. He kept building libraries. He kept giving speeches about the dignity of labor, about giving back to the common man. History remembers him as a philanthropist, one of the most generous men who ever lived. He was also the man who financed Fort Frick, who owned the company that hired the Pinkertons to retake the mill, who arranged to be on another continent when the bodies hit the riverbank, so the myth could stay clean while the mill stayed profitable. Homestead never fully recovered its voice. The mill kept running, kept producing, kept making men rich, just not the men who'd bled for it on that riverbank. The town's name became shorthand in American labor history for exactly how far a company would go to protect its bottom line, and exactly how easily the man at the top could walk away untouched. The library gets his name, the riverbank doesn't get a monument nearly as big. A private army came up that river to take a town back from the people who built it, and by the time the smoke cleared, it wasn't the men with rifles who won. It was the man who was never there at all.